done for the day. I can come back tomorrow.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, well, I did this, the first year I bought the house, that was 94. So in the summer of 94, it had a stretch like this, but it was July. And the guy I hired was from Newington. Italian guy,
Right now,
barely spoke English, not even 5 feet tall,
Okay, all right.
but his arms were 4 feet.
Yeah, well,
Just
just
down in here.
all arms.
And he had
As big as a moose.
and because he had to sign his name on a couple
Then,
things. It
When they
was
come
like
in,
Leonardo da Vinci.
and there's like three more guys, I'm gonna help.
And he was the brains, and he had a
Yeah,
nephew
you go
who
right
played
click and
linebacker
say,
for
make it a change.
maybe about
Something
6'6". Chisel. They worked from 6:45 in the morning
Yeah.
to 1:15, and every day quit at 1:15. Too hot.
And I'm gonna text,
Just-
I'm gonna text Doug and tell him.
So he had, the way the sun was, he had only sun for about the last 2 hours, and the first morning was all in the shade. But he did. It's beautiful work. Yeah. And the guys that are doing this now, they're out there in long sleeves. One guy was wearing a sweatshirt with a hat, and I said, Carlos, what the hell's wrong with you? And he said, sunburn on the skin, not good. I can take the heat, can't take the sunburn. Okay. So anyhow, I just looked out, said, you know what, I'm doing errands today. I'm not like you guys with vowels at the end of your names. The vowel at the end of my middle name is a silent E. I'm white and Irish.
You think Tom's record's in jeopardy tonight, though?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. That was, was that like 3 or 8 minutes, right? I mean, it was spectacular.
It's more like an urban myth now. That it's
We
just,
could do this, though. We could set it up and say, okay, I need a motion. Anything else? No?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Why, you want to rush out of,
No.
back into the heat? I saw you walking up here pretty slowly.
Yeah.
I was following you just as slowly. Hi, by the way, I'm Tom.
Hi, Tom. Alina Brown.
How are you?
Good.
Don't get nervous.
Okay.
We're used to working with Lise, so if things don't work and you get like that, it's okay.
She usually throws stuff at Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, like looks. Or interrupts me.
well, we really know who runs the meetings.
Yeah, I know, it's her. So I don't get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, thanks.
Is Ryan joining us?
I don't know. I like Mike now. I think it's not, doesn't need to.
No.
You'll find out
Curious.
tomorrow morning. But I don't. When Bart is still in Bergen or Norway or some damn place eating gefilte fish and sardines and lingonberries.
That was a good diet for a bear.
Yeah. Well, he's probably got a winter coat on up there. And I don't know about Rocco and Jason. But we have enough, so.
No, if I'm reading this correctly, it says where low bid is 4.4 for Griswold.
Yeah.
The allowance is included in the 4.4, or are they on top of the 4.4? I think they're included.
They're included.
Yeah.
Should be. Yeah, I go back and forth on this, and the way I got thinking about it was, even if we go, I don't know that we have the time to go back and ask them to redo stuff. If I were them, I might get a little insulted, because they were the only two bidders. Do you know if Ryan's coming tonight?
Ryan is on vacation, so he's not.
That answers that.
And Doug is on his way, but he's coming from some other, could be 15 minutes late. So he's gonna try to remotely attend until then, but we'll see.
Maybe he's looking at the asphalt sidewalk in front of my house that's just deteriorating in
That's
shape.
not, that's in our wheelhouse. That is, these facilities.
Maybe he's doing it just to let you know that you
He-
should go
he
look
could- he
at
could
the
be.
asphalt.
He
in
could
front of my
be.
house. Somebody trips in front of
You're,
it, am I
it might
responsible?
be on our list. Our sidewalk contractor has not started yet.
Okay.
So Dave has a list that's a mile long, so.
And it's probably
POs.
put on the list for next year.
Yeah.
Do you guys do any asphalt maintenance? Or just-
No, we don't do any asphalt maintenance.
You don't?
No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, we do crack sealing.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, we do that. I think back in the day, they did some micro sort of
chip?
surfacing thing
Okay.
up in Webster Heights, but that was
Yeah.
years and years ago.
Yeah.
So they don't do the chip sealing stuff anymore?
No, right now it's either mill and overlay or full depth.
Yeah.
Does anybody
or
do the
melted.
chip sealing stuff?
Oh, sometimes,
Yeah,
no, sometimes
sometimes they
do.
do.
Yeah,
My town growing up used to do it all the time. In
Yeah.
the summers, you'd ride your bike as
yeah, and you
kids,
get,
people used to
Yeah.
slide, fall off,
Yeah.
scrape.
well, it's a magnet for complaints, especially
Yeah.
with people who have really nice cars.
Oh,
And then they
yeah.
go over and they hear it clattering against the Jaguar,
Yeah.
you know? And, so I am a little reluctant to do
Yeah,
that.
no, I
I'd
think
rather
it's more
almost do
for,
a
I'm gonna say country roads, not a
Yeah,
country road, but more, not heavily used roads.
Yeah.
yeah. So some towns, I mean, it's
Well, they did-
definitely
they
a
did a
cheap way to
stretch of-
go, you know,
They
as
did a
far
stretch
as
of the Chamberlain
cost
Highway
effective.
down by, towards Meriden.
Yeah,
There was a stretch from, just into Meriden, from, I think, the Meriden line to where the businesses start, on
Yeah.
the right-hand side.
they did, where I live in Danbury, they did a test, I think it's a test section, because they paved it, and then like 2 years later, they did a chip seal.
Oh, so they want, do
I
life
think
expectancy.
they're
Yeah.
actually kind of like monitoring, because I was like, the hell, the road's still in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys still use, like the road grading program? I think Beta did it,
we
or
did.
somebody else does it now, I
Well,
don't know.
Beta, I used their spreadsheet when I first started, 'cause
Yep.
I did the previous one,
I'm
and then
scared.
yeah, and we did a street scan, which
Yep,
is the same
street
thing,
scan,
PCIs,
Yeah, okay.
pavement condition indexes. So basically, it's a score from 0 to 100.
Yep.
100 being brand spanking new, nothing's a 0.
Yeah,
But we have some roads in the
nothing's
20s.
100, yeah.
And I'm like, we're trying to knock them out. Like, we have what's called a heat map.
Yep.
And it's nice because all the roads like down like the 20, really below like 50, whatever, are all in red. And there's a lot of red, there's
Yeah.
clusters of
No.
red, so we're trying to knock them
knock
out.
those out.
Hey, speaking of stuff, around the corner from you on Hudson Street, it's been 2 days they've been taking down a tree. They've had the whole road closed.
I have
That's
videos,
huge, yeah.
that's us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And half the
huge
police
tree.
force.
Yes, we
What
shut the, we
that
shut
tree
the,
must be massive.
No, it's massive, yeah.
did you see the equipment that they had, distinctive
I
tree
saw,
had?
I went by once, I went to the right, and everybody was up there pointing. I thought,
Yeah.
was some guy ready to jump? I mean,
Yeah.
it was,
No, they
Oh,
have,
really?
you've probably seen them along 84, maybe 691.
Although the big Saracens.
Yes,
How do you say the name of it?
Yeah,
That
I think
Swedish or,
yeah,
Scandinavian,
Allenstock or whatever.
yeah,
They
big green
grab
things.
and cut
Oh,
and
yeah.
then feed it like for smaller trees, like, or, kind of they're not all that small.
Yeah.
yeah.
But they were using that and cutting the branches
For the
off
limit.
and grabbing them. And then they were using it as a crane, and the bucket truck guy was cutting them, like chunking them down. And we thought that would take 3 days, that tree.
There's crews from Canada that come down, all French Canadian,
Yeah,
because we had a couple of borrowers that use these guys to clear heavily wooded lots. You should see how fast those things go.
Yeah.
Took me out once and said, yo, come, you gotta watch this.
yeah,
Just zoom,
right, right.
zoom.
Yeah.
And then they have trucks loaded up to take the stuff away.
Yeah.
Like every couple of hours.
Yeah.
Just amazing how much they can do in one day.
They, because of that piece of equipment, I think they shaved a full day because they were going to do a crane with a climber up there doing the normal where they rope it and he's
And
doing
Yeah.
it.
lowering it.
But so I was
Yeah,
happy.
because there was a
'cause-
lot of lines around that street too.
Yeah.
Well, in the two houses. Well, I will keep looking out the front window and cars are going up and down the street. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's never any of that traffic. What the hell's going on?
Yeah,
Go down around the corner. Oh yeah, there's a detour.
Yeah.
yeah. So, is anyone trying to join?
Doug's
All right, awesome.
All right, if Doug's here, then why don't we
Yeah,
just
three
get going,
buttons,
because I don't know who
promote
else
the
is gonna
panelist,
join.
yeah? Yeah, hit that, and then we should go over, and then I think he will get an invitation on his, I think he's on a phone, allowing him to actually interact, you know, so it's almost like an invitation. Oh, there he goes, look at that.
Hey, Doug.
Okay. So he's on mute right now.
Hello, Doug.
Doug, can you hear me?
Hey guys, how are you?
God, it works.
Good.
I went to
I'm on my way in. I'll see you in a few minutes. I'm on my way in. Thanks.
Okay, all right.
Don't hit anything.
Yeah.
Then we'll call a meeting to order. Are you ready to go? Okay. Okay.
All right.
And I guess we have to figure out to make a recommendation on what to do about Griswold and Hubbard. So Mike had a couple of scenarios that we had
Yeah.
talked about and sent some stuff out to people. I know we have time, but we don't have a lot of time.
No, and I did you guys might know this already, but the town council did start the funding. They increased because there was that discrepancy, you know. So, and by the way, it took a little heat at the town. They weren't too happy with the,
With
know,
you?
the cost. Well, I was representing
Oh.
you know, the group as it was, and it was a righteous session, you know, we beat down. But and I was expecting it about why the cost estimate was so much lower than the bid that came in. But anyway, having said all that, Kevin and Ryan put together a funding package where they increased the bonding levels, as well as they're going to dip into fund balance to give us enough money to do this, and also to not have to go to public referendum unless it's an appeal.
Okay.
So the next meeting, July 8th, is all that's going to happen. But so if you're going to go ahead, the funding is in place, the mechanisms are in place. So that's just the bottom line.
So what I mean, the numbers aside, and I'm more worried about, will the town, like, what's the end date? When do these have to be substantially complete and have us run the risk of losing all
Right.
the funding?
Well, the state grants say the end of this year. However, you can get an extension, and then Ashley found out, we thought the extension might be more than a year, but so we have about a year and a half.
Okay.
So substantial completion by December 31st, 2026, assuming our request for extension is approved. And from what we're hearing, yeah, it's going to be reasonable because we're already underway, and the chillers are going to take a year.
Yeah, so, okay. Well, I think then the bigger risk to this project is lack of substantial completion.
Right.
And one of the things that if you want to spread the risk, I'm almost of a mindset of having one do one and one do the other, rather than have one company possibly go into some issue and us, you know, get 80% done on both of them rather than 100. At least if we split them, we can focus on one who seems to be behind and really ramp up some pressure.
And we've also seen from Willard, I mean, it's with Allstate, but they did it, you know,
Yeah,
they did it in, well, I mean, you could talk about the commissioning extending into this year, but everything was in running and substantial completion was,
Right.
you know, pretty close to what they had projected.
So I read what Jeff said, and I don't want to dominate this discussion, certainly you guys have some discussion, but I saw, and I just took the position of being a contractor, and I don't know that we're going to get a much better deal if we go back out and do it again. There's only two, and if they spoke beforehand, they may speak again, if you know what I'm saying. So that's what I keep thinking. So I keep coming back to, if I was doing this, I'd put the low bid on one and the low bidder on the other and have them start, and then excuse me, we should be able to monitor everything. I understand Don's, and I have the same thing too, the allowance, but you know, we can really ride herd on that allowance. We can control that somewhat.
Well, the way I was looking at it was, all states allowance, their unit price allowances were, quote unquote, reasonable. When
Yeah,
you look at the two,
yeah,
right? The disparity is more on the Save More side where they had
Right.
higher or elevated unit costs for those. So all states, I mean, their I don't feel the need to mess with their allowances, like to just let that low bid go through. Plus, Newfield will be monitoring them
That's the
anyway,
other
and
thing,
you could
yeah.
say, no.
Yeah.
At any point, allowance is a permission from the owner.
Right.
You guys. So, and Newfield would say, okay, we have this and this, you know, it's 10 grand, it's 20 grand, it's 50 grand, whatever.
and I got a lot more comfort having Newfield represent us in a position like that
Right,
than not having it.
right.
So,
That was a hybrid approach. Leave Allstate in as the low bidder for Griswold. They are the low bidder.
right.
Don't touch our allowances. And that gives you almost a 7% contingency with those allowances because it's almost $300,000.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I should have asked Jeff, maybe we can we, if we just leave their allowances alone, can we tell if we award Save More, Hubbard, can we take their allowances 1 to 4 and not give them the allowances on 5 to 10 separately, different than
Yes.
we handle the
Yes,
contract?
that was my question was,
Yeah.
is this proper?
Yeah,
And he said, yes, you can remove allowances from one because really they're two separate. There's two separate
It's,
things.
it's our money.
yeah, it's
it
our
is.
money. That's
But I
exactly
just want to
yeah.
make sure we're not getting in trouble with maybe the fact that we
Well,
had
yeah,
whatever. So, but he said no, you can do that, and you have the right to take the allowances out of the final contract. And
Right.
Doug had a conversation today with the VP of Save More about that.
okay,
And the feedback is, and I'll let him speak to that, but it sounds like it's positive. It's not
Okay.
like, oh no, we're gonna, put a claim in or whatever. And I'd like to just have him here when he, but from what I understand, it's not an obstacle.
okay.
you
So
know?
the town's put together right now for funding for this project about 10 million.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, he
Yeah.
raised it up to almost 5 and 5, or he added $2
So
million.
it should- Our let's call it our cost is 9,280,658 plus if we're going to put a contingency on top of it, a contingency would be 10%. That'd be another 928,000. If we just round up to 10 million, we got more than enough, I think.
Yeah.
Between that and the allowances you already currently have. So if they got 10 million put aside,
I think they might actually have more. I think he had $1 million from fund balance, and he went up to 5 and 5. So I think he might have 11.
So that would be right in line with
Yeah.
putting the other 10% on top of it.
Yeah.
So.
Are
all right.
you using,
So
in your jobs, do you use 10% of the total cost, or do you use a percentage of the hard cost?
No, 10% of the total cost
Okay.
until such time the job is bought out.
Right.
And you feel comfortable, you lower to 8%.
Okay. And if-
And then
in
50
lending money, now I know I've been retired for 14 years, but we used to do 7.5% only of hard costs. Because contingency on the rest of the stuff we thought was somebody else's thing. Now, I know I'm looking at it from a lender's perspective,
Mhm.
but from the total cost, and I could say to you, if you were the contractor, hey, that's your issue. Here's as much as I'm giving you.
Yeah.
But
And then if there's money contingency after 50% of the project, you lower it down to 5%.
lower, yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
used to
So-
do, yeah.
So you could continue lowering.
Yeah, and if they were meeting hurdles in terms of time and money, we could.
So how do you view the allowances? Are you going to add 10% on top of, say, for example, Griswold, Allstate has allowances of $300,000. It's almost 7% contingency. So are you going to add another 8 or 10 on top of that?
So right now, when I totaled it all up with the allowances included and all the soft costs, it comes out to 9,280,658.
Right.
Now everything's all in that number. Now,
when you say all in, are you adding a 10% on top?
No, now,
Oh,
now you
okay.
add the 10%, you get to 10 million.
You get- Right.
It'll be
Okay,
11
got
million, it'll be 928,000 on top of the 9.2. So 910, so you're at 10.1. 10.1 would be the number.
Do you remember
But that's
how-
really just a 10-1 from a, I'm gonna say from a town authorization budget perspective,
Exactly,
not from a
right.
contracting perspective.
Right.
Just so it's available in this bucket, and then we work towards the contract amounts, and then it's, if necessary, at the end or
Yeah,
at some point.
It'd be 10.1.
And I think for let's call them soft costs, the construction, the CM, and the other disciplines, they already have in some cases more than 10%.
I took their total numbers.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I took
Yeah.
the total numbers, add them up, and that's how I got to 9,280. So it is what it is.
I mean, history has shown us that, not us per se, but a lot of times the contingencies, depending upon the decade and who you're picking, sometimes they get used.
Oh,
In
no.
this instance, with Allstate, we have history, it was pretty good.
Yeah. And
And from what we're hearing about Save More, they're pretty good,
Oh,
but it's
yeah,
still
you-
prudent to have
yeah,
that number. It's up to us, to be very disciplined on what we're using.
right.
And
And,
I don't
and we're
worry
just talking
about
about
it
the
with
unit
you
price
guys.
allowances anyway.
Yeah,
And then I told them that you didn't get a blanket, no, we can't from Save More today, right?
Right.
Yeah,
on
they,
that.
they reached out last week just as a follow-up, just kind of checking in on the status and
Yeah.
got back to them this morning. Jason, the VP, he just said, based on the timing, they didn't RFI as much as they would like to kind of clarify. So that's why their unit costs were a little heavy. And they're comfortable with, I said to the meeting tonight, but they're certainly open to the change order approach where it's very transparent, the allowable markup of the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were,
What about the schedule date? The revised schedule date?
we didn't get to the schedule other than, it didn't seem like there's any concern about lead time or, whatever chiller we wanted to pick. So, they seem pretty open to.
And what I'm talking more about is the funding mechanism. If we go over the time period, I mean, if we hold the date and get it substantially complete by what's the date?
Well, we're all looking at 2026 because it's the way we're gonna have it done by
Yeah,
Christmas.
We're kind of, we're
So-
of the mindset that the state, if they issue the money, although recently they've said if you don't spend it, we want it back. But I think if we're committed, it's going to be hard to pull it back, knowing that the funding's for HVAC. It'd be hard to.
Well, we're taking our lead from Ashley on this. If she
Yeah.
says, it's really up in the air, then maybe the town should do it, because otherwise we're going to be stuck.
Well, the town of Newstead has enough money to fund it themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think what Don is saying is the end of December 2026.
Right.
It's got to be their completion
Like
date.
we should be close if not there.
Substantial
So-
completion. line.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that these people know that.
That grant language is similar to the school construction office. It's they allow that 6-month closeout for commissioning or punch list,
Right.
but they know that the bulk of the work is done. And, the paperwork, they realize.
So what was
Right.
it, December, what?
December 31st, 2026. And that's assuming we get the 1-year extension. And that's all we get.
They figure we're, sand in the hourglass as far as the lead time on mechanicals, knowing that it's not worse than Willard, but let's just say it's that 8 to 12 month window. They're catching up a little bit. So
I'm fine with moving forward with all this, as long as we have that date agreed to. That
Okay.
They'll be substantially complete.
contractually in the.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm talking substantial completion.
Right.
Right.
If it goes a little bit beyond it, then we comply with the state. We are allowed to get the state funds back. So I think that's the best way to go. We're all in agreement sitting at this table that the project cost is around 10.1 with contingencies included.
Right.
So therefore, we'll control the contingencies. And right now, the contingency amounts will probably, let's see, what do you got here? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got about 800,000 in contingencies, plus the contingency
That we have.
that we're proposing, which is another
Yeah.
900,000.
It's going to be $1.7 million,
Yeah.
$1.75
So we'll have about 2 million.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So no matter what we run across, we'll be able to take care of it.
Question about contingency, because I had a conversation with someone about owner's contingency on the entire project
Don't get
versus.
confused. Don't
Yeah.
get confused.
No,
You got to understand, it's all our money.
right,
Right.
I
So
get
don't
it.
ever go down that road where it's
Yeah.
owner, it's ours, it's theirs.
Right.
That
No,
isn't,
I
it's
get
all our
that,
money.
but it could be individual contingencies on each one of these bids or contracts, or, and I think town council they weren't open to last time, I think having an owner's contingency on, I think, multiple
You call it,
disciplines.
you call
you
it
know.
project contingency,
Right.
Yeah.
and we control the project contingency, period.
Okay,
There's no ours, there's, you know,
okay,
It's like
someone
taxes.
else's.
So-
Taxes aren't the government's money, it's my money.
right, I get that.
So like all these allowances, if they're not required, they're in contingency.
No, I get that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then again, we have a contingency on top of that, just in case.
Is it global enough where you can switch between each one?
Yeah, because again,
Okay, all right,
the money is fungible based on how you cost code it.
right,
You know, you see, you can go any way with it on these projects.
That's
It's
up
just-
to us to
Right.
guide that and determine it. And
Right.
when we've obviously done it for years by saying, okay, we can move
No,
this here.
I
We
get
can
the
force trade,
advantages, I
yeah.
love it, I'm just,
You always keep it fungible. And what we do have is, once we commit the dollars, let's say, we right up front, we commit the contract to, who's it, Allstate for 4.4,
right,
and we commit the contract at 3.7 to Save More.
right,
Those are committed dollars. They go in the committed column. Those
Right.
are the ones we can't touch. We could cost code them for each job, and then the balance of the money remains in the contingency until we so desire to write a change order to an allowance. Right, and then at that point, the contractor gets the markup on it. So
no,
until,
I get all that,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, because I think in the past we were, I don't know, I don't call it restricted, but it was almost like like for example, Griswold and Hubbard, just look at the two contractors. You put a 10% on each one of those, but you wouldn't be able to flex between them, if you get my
yeah,
drift.
yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I like the idea of having the flexibility go to, and we have 6 different like categories here, but is that, what are you proposing? Are you gonna do 10% on top of each one?
I'm gonna, my recommendation would be to take the 9,280,000, which is total projects cost for
Right.
both of these schools, all right? We call them two separate projects, however you want, and then put a 10% contingency on top of that, which would bring us to about 10.1 for total
Controlled by
dollars.
us. And
Okay.
Maybe
No,
one
I-
school
yeah.
uses all of it because maybe the equipment for that school is so
Right.
specialized that something happened. I don't know, but I agree
Again,
with
like I
Don.
said, the dollars are fungible, as long as
If they
we
are
understand.
fungible, that's great,
Long as we understand that they're costed only for these projects.
right,
They're not costed for everything else in the
Right.
In the
stratosphere.
town,
It
right?
Right.
sticks to these two.
Yeah, the only IE with respect to that conversation is that, for instance, like Willard, there's project contingency, which is in the project account, which that project account paid everybody on the list. So like overtime for custodians was billed against the project. It's a project related
Correct.
cost.
Yeah.
The
No,
storage container. So Mike's just saying like,
I agree with that.
you know, PVC can control the approvals of that. However, it's in the project account that it's not specific to a vendor, but it's town money for the
Right.
project. It may
Right.
be additional ceiling tiles, additional flooring,
So-
a storage container.
So all that stuff, as long as you cost code it, once you create the cost codes for the two projects, you'll have your side of that to control.
That's all, just because
Right.
the extra layers with the PD project
Yeah,
fences.
I agree.
That was locked
Yeah.
up in a.
If we
yeah,
specific vendor.
just-
and that's
so-
what, yeah,
Just so everyone uses the same terminology.
Terminology.
that's,
It's cost of the work.
Cost of
Right.
the-
Okay,
Okay.
so
Project
that's what it
related
is.
expenses, but like you
It's
said, we're not
cost of
going
the
out to
work.
remodel the
That-
school.
yeah,
That would not be required unless we didn't do this project.
Correct.
So that's cost of the work to the project.
And the project has an impact on the building, therefore the contingency is available if something project related drives an extra cost that's not owned by anybody.
So let's say they're working out there, they break a sprinkler line, or they break something that floods the building. Your guys up there mopping and cleaning it all up. That's all billable back to the project, which will go after the contractor's insurance for down the road.
Not
So-
for FF&E, we're gonna get computers and
Correct.
carpet. It's just, it's
Yeah.
just project related expenses that we have the flexibility to go get a PO against it.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty good and clear about that in the past, but you're right, that Don's right, to code it correctly so that it's upfront and everybody understands it. I just don't want anybody, and I'm not saying anybody does it in the town, but maybe at some point years ago it was done, to have a cavalier attitude towards, oh, well, we have a contingency, we'll go ahead and spend that.
Right,
No,
right.
Were up to me, I'd be,
Well, we
my
should get,
father would ask me for every dime.
so again, let's, for discussion purposes, Griswold, let's say that's project 2025001, and the other one is 2025002.
right,
Those are the two project numbers. So all the costs associated with those two projects go there. If you need work done on it, you bill to that project, it just comes back to us to approve it like a change order, and we're good to go. You know, does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think Kevin knows that too. I mean,
yeah,
And there's
so-
there'll be two project accounts because the state's looking at these separately. So
Yes,
there's
right,
two
right,
project accounts, 500 something, and then all that there'll be a tracking of
Be
every
tracked.
right,
penny spent against is going to go into that account. So
It's
fully
either A or
see
B,
it.
yeah.
yeah, right. I will tell you, I will need help with the agenda item right up on this.
We said it's gonna be a big,
Doug and I were
beautiful
talking
agenda.
about it. I was thinking I would have 6 separate ones, and then Doug's like, why don't you just do one big one? And I'm like, oh my God, you know what? But that probably makes sense, because
Yeah,
then you can describe everything in the beginning
the
and the
motion.
contingency in one, and then have these motions just rolling off.
Just make sure the tape is audible so you can listen to it again and again and again. Stop.
So I think the way I would word it is, we authorize, for the approval, we authorize the approval of the project for Hubbard and for Griswold schools with a combined budget total of $10.1 million.
And do we want to say that includes a project contingency of $900-something thousand, or do we?
Well, I
want to
think
get in
we break that out. We break that out in the spreadsheet.
in the spreadsheet? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because then I think we,
Well, somebody may ask,
Does that go
you
over
know,
what Kevin
approve
had
or
laid out?
authorize
Does that go
each of
over
the
what Kevin laid
individual
out?
contracts with the base
Because
and
it's-
the
it's-
contingency or allowance.
Yeah.
For
That may-
this,
that
just
may
so
exceed what we're
so
authorized.
we recognize what's authorized for each contractor at this point, understanding that the allowances aren't authorized to them as of yet.
just thinking of the town council and the board of finance getting this.
Yeah.
They, when they hear that number, they're gonna say one thing. And you could have a comma inclusive of $1.75 million.
No, I just want to make sure we know the cap,
contingency.
because I thought it was,
That's all.
I thought it was 6 and 5, because it was throwing in an extra million from fund balance.
6 million for the ordinance and 5 million for the bonding.
So yeah, I thought it was 6 and 5, 11.
That's up to 11. You're saying 10 and 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
you're well below it, and
below that.
Kevin had cushion because he recognized the
He always
contingency
does.
could flex,
Yeah.
you know. But he was going with, and his numbers, I think he was using 10%.
Yeah. So I would take it this
All
way.
right, so we're good with, you think I thought it was 11, 6 and 5. All right.
Just had a couple questions just in your summary sheet. So just to be clear, the 4-4 for Allstate is their item. Their item doesn't include their allowances. The allowances.
No, it does.
It does. It's
Yeah.
all in.
Their
We-
441 does include the allowances.
Yes, it includes,
Yes,
it-
It's
yeah,
all in.
it's all in. And,
And then we further show the allowances. And then for Hubbard, we take the 4.2 for Save More, we back out the 665,
yep,
and
well,
that,
actually it was 510. And we're gonna keep the fixed, if you look at the.
It was,
Yeah.
right, it was 1
So,
through 4.
Yeah,
1 through 4,
1 through
so
4.
510, okay.
Yeah.
Back that
And-
out, and then,
and you
and then we add, and that's where we leave in the 150.
Yeah,
we
it
had-
was, we took out basically all the allowances, 5
Yep,
through
5,
10, which
10,
add up to 510. So basically $500,000 comes off the
Sure.
bid, you know? And we keep the 155, which are the fixed, the
Fixed
allowances
ones
1 through 4.
Okay.
Now I know how they got to the 11 million.
Wow.
That's
Oh.
how they got to, because they counted all that in.
They come
They
out,
added
yeah,
it
he
all
did-
in,
He
yeah.
did everything as is. And then,
Yeah,
What they don't
Which is
know
fine.
won't hurt.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's,
I mean,
yeah.
you get two different.
Because if
And-
they
and-
ask us what we think, we can say, well, 10-1, and that's still with a hefty $1.7 million
and will that
contingency.
allow if that's 4% project contingency on top of the allowances for Hubbard?
It's 10% over everything.
10%. Okay, so we'll
So-
still have that.
so
wiggle
with
room
it-
for-
Then let me clarify. So within that is a CMA, architectural, civil, MEP, and commissioning all has 10% contingency on each one of those numbers as well.
Oh, okay.
Because that's why when you do it globally, it includes all that. So I added all those into that. I took this whole
Now-
line of numbers here,
Right,
it equals that.
right. And you
then
know,
then I just threw
you
that.
know that this is in these, right?
This isn't where.
All of these allowances are in these numbers already, so we're good.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, okay,
So therefore we got to that,
Right.
and then we round up to this,
right.
and I don't think we'll have a problem.
And that 10% overall contingency, project contingency can, like Mike said, be shifted around if
Yeah.
the allowances
Yeah.
come out of Save More.
And
but
the reason I was
But we
upset-
haven't come close to ever using that in
Yeah.
any project.
But the reason I'm obsessing about this is because I experienced in the PD project where it was specific to,
Yeah.
That was different though.
Yeah.
I know, Millennium, we
Yeah.
had to go back to town council multiple times to do, like,
Right.
I guess, reduce the contingency to shift it over to something else. And so I like this idea, and so does Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin, he likes the idea of fungible
Yeah.
contingency where it can float
So,
around.
but what we have to do is, once we approve it tonight, I'll work with you on it, and we'll put together the numbers for each project,
Right,
and we'll break it all down, all the way down through the project.
right.
Because again, then we'll show the individual projects, but it's gonna come out to that number at the end of the day for the total.
Yeah.
No matter how we do it, the math is the math.
Well, I think that's going to be actually pretty conservative considering there's already some stuff baked in here. You know?
Yes.
So
Well, we
I
did-
like it.
Yeah, but we did before, and then remember, unbeknownst to us, Kevin added a contingency on top of something. And we never came close to it.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I mean, they're only gonna bond as we use it, right? They're not gonna go out and bond.
Right.
Right.
They're not gonna bond it up
They're
front.
probably going to use whatever numbers we come up with. And Kevin, because Kevin's waiting,
Yeah.
because he knows he has cushion and he doesn't want to bond, or I think he doesn't want to borrow and or dip into fund balance more than needed. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So like I said, I think at the end of the day, we're at this,
yeah,
gives him some flexibility. As
right,
long as we break it down into 2 projects from this point forward, and break these numbers in half, or
which
whatever
is
the
what he
percentage
did,
is.
yeah. No, he did that. And
Okay,
I
'cause it
think
may
that's
be-
fair.
It may be more like a 70-30 number split or something like that, or whatever the number is, or we split it in half, I don't care.
Yeah.
And we break it down that way, so we know where all those dollars are for each project. You throw your contingencies on it,
Right.
and you're all set. Then what we'll do is we'll break out the allowances below the line,
Right,
and then come back to a grand total at the bottom.
Right.
And those allowances will remain on our side of the ledger,
Right.
along with the contingency.
right. And Doug, just so you know, I kept the SCS with the design phase services number in the 48,000 in here. I didn't chop
Yeah,
it down.
and
Let's
that's
say,
optional.
Yeah.
Optional, additional review.
yeah, but that's a kind of a chump change
Yeah,
discussion. So, okay.
So I made a motion.
Did you repeat the motion?
I can't repeat it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Forever hold your peace. Okay.
So that implicitly means all of these contractors are getting awarded that are on this sheet.
We're recommending it to
Yes,
town council.
right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And there'll be, we'll have to do a subject to funding and all that other stuff, right? Because we have town council and board of finance and a town meeting, whatever. There's a lot of stuff going on, but
They're in sync next week.
we'll
2
take care of
weeks.
that language. Right?
Yeah.
We know how to do that, right? One agenda item. You're a
It's a
maniac.
big shuffle.
So,
Do
yeah.
stuff.
And I think what I'm gonna do is run all the stuff before it goes through by you guys to make sure, you know, that our mega agenda item is clear and, you know, it's
So
correct.
when is it, today is Tuesday. When is it going?
We have to submit
Thursday
the
is
town
town
council item
About a
by next Tuesday, right?
For Madam Clerk. could-
So a week from today, we're gonna be submitting the agenda item write-up with your recommendation, all that, to the town clerk, and then that'll be on the agenda for the following week, which is July 8th, right? July 8th is
Yes.
next.
next meeting.
And then that's
So,
enough
and we
time.
still have some, we have a little flexibility, because if something has to change, we can do it Wednesday or Thursday, but
Oh, scope review. Did you want to bring anybody in for scope review?
What do you have to go over? I mean, we've got 2 bidders. I
As a
mean.
formality, just
Yeah.
to, anybody you want.
No, I mean, it makes no sense. They have it all, is my opinion, because we only have 1 bidder for each school.
Yeah.
If we have multiple bidders, yeah, I'd be all up for a scope review.
the only
We
kicker, though, is the schedule. Like, you guys gotta be finished December 31st, 2026.
Well,
You know,
I would-
that's gotta be, you know.
I would send that letter out right now. I
Yeah.
wouldn't Wait.
Okay,
The contracts are part of the bid package, so we can just get them finalized. And
So you know,
circulate them
this is,
whenever
I understand it,
Yeah.
every
Do this,
discussion with
because
them
we
should
didn't
start
award
with-
yet.
Letter of
Right.
intent.
Send out an addendum. Yeah, with the contract completion date, and see what they respond back with. Because they may respond back with no cost, which is perfect, that's what we want. But if they come back with a cost, we just add it in and make sure we got it covered.
well, I don't think it'll officially be an addenda, because we're already done with we've already closed the bids down, but it could be a post-submission alert or whatever.
Yeah, with Jeff, we can just.
Yeah.
It's almost like a scope review, except, not a scope review, but just a confirmation. So,
You could do like you said too, write in the letter of intent,
Yeah.
and put it in the bottom
Oh,
of the
no,
letter of intent. This
actually, it could be in
is
that,
the
yes.
contract completion date,
Yeah.
and see what they come back with.
We could
You could also have it
send
the first
draft
line of the
contracts
letter.
to
We're
them?
awarded
that?
Can we send the
contract.
draft contracts to them with the revisions?
Yeah, I think we
the
should get
allowances?
started.
Yeah, I
I
would.
would.
I'm
Yeah.
good with that,
I
Yeah.
would.
So Jeff
Because-
can update those. We can send them out for
Yeah.
review because we're removing some of the language of the contract from the
Yeah.
bid,
Right,
RFPs.
and
Make
that
sure
way,
make sure that contract completion date is in there.
Well,
Yeah.
Yes.
I would write it in twice. I would have it almost in the first paragraph,
Yeah.
and then again to finish up at the end. I would-
right,
Well, like
Well,
Doug said, we
mine
could send out the
26.
draft contracts with it.
Right.
yeah.
Put it right in the
See what
draft
they say in
contract.
the
And
draft, yeah.
put it in every letter we send, letter of intent, let notice to proceed,
Right,
whatever,
exactly.
and make sure it's in bold, bold letters.
Well, you
And
don't
if
want
they-
them to say they didn't know. So
Right, if they
Yeah.
bring it up we
Right.
could say, yeah,
Do you want a
this is,
formal
we're serious about
letter
this.
of intent?
I would.
Something like that, just official,
I
just to
would.
keep them like.
Yeah, I would,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds well, every time we intend to enter into contract with the schools
Going
based
through
on a
the
completion date of.
Right.
Especially
Throw the
since they
date out.
called to inquire, just let them know as a courtesy, yeah, we're recommending it's going forward. Now, it's
Right.
gonna take 3 weeks before we can formally send a
Right.
letter.
Just
But a
Right.
letter
every
of
week
intent
counts
from the
now.
PDC.
I know. I feel, I
wanna-
feel mad. We're losing most of July.
And it's if they want to do any site work or above ceiling work this summer or prep work, or at least they know they have that window after. the
Yeah, well, you
contract.
put in the letter of intent, you put in proceed off for preparatory work, bid submissions, early releases of equipment. You put all that in the letter of intent,
Right.
so it gets them rolling.
And a new field be on board, we have like a kickoff team meeting with everybody.
And Nick can help us big time.
Everybody on
Brian
the
and
list, yeah.
Patrick, or whoever's on the project.
Get the band, some
Yeah.
new members together. So.
Yeah.
And the fact maybe Brian and Patrick can help out a little ahead of time because they know they got the job.
And do we know for sure if Patrick will be the PM? for
I
this
don't-
one?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully he is, but
Tom's,
They got
their
good
site
people.
logistics plans, all that, put all that in the letter of intent. I always do.
yeah.
Everything you need them to get going on right
Load it
away.
up heavy on the front so I can't hurt.
They know right out of the box where they stand, and then
Yeah.
put the date, like your meeting, I'd put down a letter of intent. There'll be an on-site mandatory meeting on the state, and just throw it out there for each school.
Do you run those letters by Jeff D'Onofrio as
I
a matter
would,
of course?
especially with all the stuff you're asking us.
With
Like,
this
you know.
magnitude, we
I
want
just
to-
didn't know
Yeah.
if the town had a policy
I
on
run
it.
a lot of stuff by Jeff
Well, that's
because, you
good.
know,
That's why he's,
he always has something that, you know,
He's
positive
on
to
the
throw
ball.
in there, you know, as far as like protecting the town and
why he gets
making
the
it
big money.
clear.
yeah.
And he's super fast. I don't know how he's so efficient. It's unbelievable.
It's a construction lawyer.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, he's almost like a SWAT team lawyer. I mean, I don't know. He's just bang on it. So, okay, so,
Make a motion, we adjourn?
okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Now what do you have?
Nothing.
That was easy.
That's it.
Thank you guys.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
So how do I get the road to my area on the list?
Well, it's the
Asphalt
same. It's the
maintenance?
same as his sidewalk. It's not. It's going to be on the list.